Hi, everybody. Alan Arnett here with another podcast and the blog on alanarnett.com. It is Sunday, May 12th, 2026. Happy Mother's Day out there to all the moms, all the ones that we have with us and all the ones that have left us. So happy birthday, Ida. Miss you much. Love you still. Hey, let's get on with the Everest 2026 update. It's been a crazy week. Heavy, heavy snow, high winds. You got people that are just stuck at Camp 2, people stuck at base camp, people on other mountains. I got a direct message from a climber over on Mira Peak. She said they were got 2 feet of snow. Think about that, 2 feet of fresh snow. Man, that makes avalanche conditions really dangerous and just tough sledding all the way around. I don't think they're sledding. Anyway, I digress. Over on Everest, like I said, they were at Camp 2 primarily, just hunkered down there. Thankfully, that's a little bit more of a developed camp, so they were fairly comfortable. But nobody went anywhere. Adventure Consultants posted that they were all set to go tag Camp 3 at around 7,000 meters as part of their final acclimatization rotation. But they took an extra day, bonus day they called it, at Camp 2. Camp 2 must be filled up with just tons of people. Nepal has now issued a record 492 permits with about 110 female climbers of that 492. That's a tremendous number of people. It's almost spot on what I predicted 4 or 5 months ago. There'd be about 500 permits on the Everest side. Some of those are transfers from the north side because China canceled it. Somebody asked me on a comment from last week's podcast to make more comments about the Chinese closing the north side. Reality is that no one really knows why they did it. And also, what's interesting is that there are Chinese climbers, Chinese teams climbing on the Tibetan side. And on the excellent blog by Stephen Nestler, that he said that he was told that the ropes are already to Camp 3 on the north side route, but they still got to fix it all the way to the summit. So they're kind of in the same place that on the Nepali side is to the South Col, which is roughly the same as elevation as Camp 3 on the Tibetan side. But here's the deal coming up, gang, is that it's going to be the weather. It's always about the weather on Everest. Remember back in 2019, there were only 3 days when the winds were under 30 miles an hour to let about 600 people get to the top. Well, that might be coming into the same type of situation this year. Perhaps not. It's the weather. I had a nice conversation with my friend Chris Tomer of Tomer Weather Solutions, who provides weather forecasting along with Michael Fagan and Mark DeKeyser. What he told me was that the storm that's going to happen right now on May 9th and 10th, that's what we've seen. We're kind of at the end of that window, though. It's already May the 11th in Nepal at just past midnight. But he said then the jet stream is going to just park on top of the summit from May 14th to May 18th. So 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. That's 5 days. All right. So what'll happen is that it looks like that the rope fixers are going to try to get the ropes to the summit by May 13th. That's Wednesday. Mingma Ji of Imagine Nepal made a bold post on his media saying that if the rope fixers don't do it, that his team will. Well, it's the same thing that happened with the icefall doctors not getting past that big serac that was blocking the icefall. And finally, Mingma Ji took it upon himself to go and lead a team to go find a route around that. So he expressed a lot of frustration with the Nepal government, with regulations. For example, drones are banned. Now drones are not banned and are banned again. You can take ropes by helicopters. No, you can't. It's just on again, off again. And he claims that's cost them precious days when the weather was good and they could have gotten a lot more progress made. But he's saying that if they don't get the ropes up by 13th, that his team will do it themselves. They will take the ropes. They will go from the South Col up to the summit. But then, according to Tomer, the jet parks the next day on the 14th. And I went and looked at some other weather forecasts to talk to some other people, and it looks like there's a lot of consensus around that. So what we're going to have is that a handful of teams will probably ignore that jet stream forecast, and they're going to say, well, we can do it because we're fast. We're speedy climbers. I had one Nepali operator tell me that it'll be the speedy climbers that'll go up on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Well, I don't care how fast you go. Chris is suggesting that there's going to be wind chills of minus 68 centigrade or Fahrenheit. At that temperature, it really doesn't matter. Minus 68. That is frostbite. I don't care what type of a down suit that you have or boots. So I'm expecting, sadly, there's probably going to be some deaths. There's probably going to be a lot of unreported frostbite, probably some rescues also unreported. So this next week is going to be a nail biter. So then maybe the jet stream moves away on after the 18th, around the 19th. Now we're going to see a mad push from the 19th all the way to the end of the season. The Western teams will probably keep their powder dry and start heading up around the 22nd, 23rd, I would guess, letting the rest of the Nepali teams go ahead and clear out. And then you'll see the people going up with no O's, like Justin Sackett. By the way, he spent 2 nights at Camp 3, reported in and sent me a message and said that he's feeling great, strong, that he's with one Sherpa and that they were moving incredibly fast. He made it up from Camp 2 to Camp 3 in 3.5 hours, which is just absurdly fast. A Sherpa speed for Justin. So he's really feeling optimistic about his no O's climb. Reed Stolson also checked in. He got to Camp 2. He said it was a 10 out of 10. So he said he wasn't exaggerating. He was feeling really, really good. And then we got Carl and Tyler going to be doing the speed runs. And I expect all of these guys to be in that last window, somewhere around the 23rd, 24th, 25th, so that they could avoid the crowds. Because remember, if you're not using supplemental oxygen, you're going to go slow. And if you go slow, that means you're going to get cold. So you don't want to waste any time. You don't want to be hanging around in long lines. So you want to let everybody else get ahead. You probably want to start really early or get off pattern, go either before or after the other teams head up. But you got to go up and down without oxygen. And so, that's going to be another one to watch, but that won't be until week, 10 days from now. So it'll be not this upcoming week, but the next week. Let's see what else is going on here. There was a Sherpa death on Everest. Bihai Girmi, 35 years old. He was the first Dalti climber of some ethnicity. And that's significant because that ethnicity has always considered to be the lowest caste in the Hindu hierarchy, and they've long faced discrimination and exclusion. So it was an extremely proud moment when he summited Everest in 2016 for his people, his ethnicity. Sadly, he was reported he wasn't feeling well and got halfway through the ice fall, decided to turn back, and he passed away while he was going back down. This is the second fatality of the season. The second one, Lapka Dindi Sherpa, 51 years old. He was on his way leading a climbing team to get to Everest, and he passed away. Unknown reasons for him. Also, that's unknown for Bahi why he died. But it's probably altitude related. So my condolences to both their families. On a Serac update, I'm told directly by people that have gone by it that it was massive and it was scary. I've got a picture of it on the blog, and I'll try to put it into this podcast for the users, everybody watching it on YouTube video. If you're listening to this audio, then go click on my blog, alanarnett.com. You'll see it. Anyway, it thing's huge. It's massive, and you can see how it's teetering right there. I understand that it has fallen over and that it left a massive debris field, and that climbers are having to weave their way through and work through it, and the icefall doctors went in and put another few ladders into it. Something else going on this week. This is the 30th anniversary of the 1996 tragedy when 12 people died. At that time, that was a record that's been sadly surpassed multiple times, including a few years ago when 18 people died on Everest. That year, 1996, there were about 400 climbers, Sherpas and members who summited that spring. Think about that. And this year, we're probably going to have 700-800 that are at a summit. times have changed. But John Krakauer, the author of the best-selling book Into Thin Air, he wrote a new forward, updated the forward to Into Thin Air, and kind of re-released it. And so he's on a media circuit promoting that. And I've got some quotes that he has put out from these interviews. Pretty interesting. That Krakauer talks about that he's 72 years old now, and he used to be just totally against people climbing Everest. He was just adamant that it was too dangerous, and it wasn't a good use of humanity, and other things like that. Pretty negative about it. But he says that he's kind of changed his mind, and he's mellowing out. That he said, look, if you're willing to take the risk and the moral hazard, then go for it. Because I still don't think it's a good idea. And then he goes on to talk at length about the PTSD and the guilt that he felt about the '96 disaster, and in writing the book and things. He says, that he regrets going. It was a bad decision to go, but he doesn't regret writing the book Into Thin Air. But he wished that he hadn't gone. And he also talked a little bit about Sandy Hill Pittman. She was pretty well demonized by him in the book. In fact, let me just read this quote that how Krakauer characterized her into the book Into Thin Air. Quote, Pittman epitomized all that was reprehensible about the debasement of the world's highest mountain, insulated by her money, a staff of attendants, and unwavering self-absorption. Pittman was heedless of the resentment and scorn she inspired in others. Whoa, that's best. So when asked about that, he said that a lot of people felt that he blamed her for the disaster, but he says no, that she doesn't deserve to be the scapegoat. Then he goes on to say in this recent interview, now here in May 2026, so 30 years later, that she was actually stronger than several clients on the Adventure Consultants team, that she had been to altitude and she had been to Everest twice. But he said, I'd never been above 17,000 feet. But he said that she was a character. So in an interview, a separate interview, Sandy Hill, she goes by Sandy Hill now, not Sandy Hill Pittman, that this is the first time she's spoken out in 30 years, because she really kept quiet, and she said it basically, the quote is, my life was ravaged. I lost my job. Professionally, I was trash. Socially, I was ostracized. She ended up getting a divorce, got distance from her son, and her life just took a turn for the worse. She also addressed the infamous espresso machine that Krakauer used, Exhibit A of how she was self-entitled and all this other stuff. And everybody, not everybody, but I've heard a lot of people ask about the espresso machine. They have this idea that it's something that you plug in, that there was a separate generator for it. It was the size of a microwave oven or something. In reality, it was a stainless steel small pot about the size of a teapot that would go on top of a stove, and they would put it in. She did make espresso, but it was not a machine. It was a coffee pot. So, once again, the media loves to take things and run with it. All right, moving on. The other 8,000ers, so Annapurna, Dhaulagiri, Makalu, and Manaslu. Things are pretty well over on Annapurna and Manaslu. There was only one team of 2 Ukrainians that summited it. Everybody's off of Annapurna now. They've moved on to either Dhaulagiri or Makalu, but most of the action is on Makalu. I have a Summit Coach client on Makalu, sent me a message this morning, said that they had to abandon their push, that the weather had just turned for the worst, and that it just wasn't worth the risk of going up. That said, there were some other people that did summit Makalu today. I think they were from Seven Summits Treks. One notable one that I was following is a gentleman named Paul Clark, and he sent me a first-person summit report from Makalu, and also a video. I've got this also on the blog on the website, and he just talks about the climb itself. That he says the night climb was incredible. Under a full moon, the mountain almost glowed around us, and for a few hours it felt strangely calm for an 8,000-meter peak. And he said, but then the winds picked up in the 50 to 60 kilometer range, and the final ridge became a cold, exhausting battle. He said on the way back down that things were going well, but then all of a sudden the winds picked up again, the snow hit him, and he said it was a navigational nightmare trying to get those last few meters into Camp 2. So, man, that's a harrowing report, and I encourage you to read it, but more also to look at that video, because it shows him going up the summit ridge to to the summit on Annapurna or Makalu, and it's just stunning. And it tells you why some people turn around and some people keep going. But this is what we talked about a lot. It's a risk profile, including that Serac, and now we've got the weather with all the heavy snow. Now we've got avalanche danger. Mountaineering is not a safe sport, full stop. But that's the contract that you make with the mountain when you go there. And if you don't know what you're doing, if you're inexperienced, or you're going with unqualified guides or people, then you're putting your life at unnecessary risk, because there are avoidable disasters and then there are unavoidable disasters. And I'm very concerned this upcoming week, and I hope and I send best positive energy in the world to all those climbers that they have clear decisions and make positive decisions. There was also a death on Makalu, a gentleman from Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic, I guess. David Rubenbach, 38 years old, died of some form of high altitude illness. So again, my condolences to him as well. Again, these mountains are deadly. So this upcoming week, it looks like that, like I said, that we'll see probably ropes getting to the summit on May 13th. And then you're going to see some ill-advised summits on the 14th, 15th, but mostly people will wait 5 more days, and they'll probably just hunker down at Camp 2, it'd be my guess, rather than going back through the ice fall again. But they'll have teams that will retreat back to base camp. And some people will go back down to Namche. Some people will go to Kathmandu. And again, I think that's really a mistake, because you get exposed to new bacteria, new bugs, with people that you aren't around. You eat at buffets, you eat salads that had been washed with local water that's not healthy. Anyway, that's a rant that I've done too many times. This is the last time I'll hit that one. But we got to hold on here this next week and hope for the best for everybody. As far as the other mountains go, I think things are going to wrap up on Makalu. Paul, like I said, just summited Makalu. He's headed now over to Everest. He wants to do Everest, Lhotse, and Nuptse, the Triple Crown. So good luck to him. Good luck to all the teams. Good luck to the No-O's guys, girls. Kristen Harless, she also was up at Camp 2 this past week. Not quite sure what her schedule is at this point, but good luck to Kristen. Safe climbing to everybody. Okay, that's it. I will keep you updated during the week as news develops. Again, I'll do a podcast if the news warrants it. Otherwise, I will see everybody back here next Sunday. That'll be May 17th. And again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Love you, Mom. Climb on. This is Alan. Memories are everything.
The podcast on AlanArnett.com is sponsored by Summit Coach, helping aspiring climbers worldwide to reach their dreams.